let's take a look at the 10 key DP supervisor competencies. So the training has 10 main learning goals, and these constitute the main skills and competencies that you will need as a DP supervisor. So let's take a closer look at them. The first one is identifying a clinical challenge. Here you will learn to efficiently guide a collaborative process towards identifying clinical challenge. And to identify a clinical challenge that is behavioral instead of conceptual, that is probably impeding therapy progress, and that both the trainee and the supervisor are motivated to focus on. And the collaborative aspect of this is really important. But this happens through a discussion. Alex, just jump in anytime you want. The next key competency is to identify a skill deficit. You recognize this from the model we just reviewed. You will learn to efficiently guide the collaborative process towards identifying what the trainee is doing in response to the clinical challenge that seems ineffective. And this one is a hard one, I think, and I've been practicing this a lot to actively try to take the shame out of learning. Is easier said than done, and it's not it's not even done in only once. It has to be maintained, because here we have a challenging part of the supervision that you get a lot of training in doing this in this certification program. And then identifying an actionable learning goal. When I started doing this, we had almost zero literature, and this competency scale that we developed for this 10 skills was kind of the curriculum, and I think that in this competency scale, the word actionable was really very helpful for me as a DP supervisor to be. The learning goal has to be actionable. So when you do this certification, your trainer will teach you to efficiently identify a relevant and actionable learning goal to address the identified clinical challenge.
So just to mention that, Vidar, so by actionable, we mean something that you can practice and you can actually use with your client.
Yeah.
The contrast
Behavioral.
between actionable and purely conceptual.
Mm.
So it's not just a theory, not just something you think about, but it's something you can actually use and say to your client.
Yeah, that's it, and also that you can easily practice, because I think that's also, as therapists, I think this has been like pedagogically so hard to go from supervision to have all that information and experience from supervision, and to demand of myself to put this to use in the next session. I think it's too much to ask because there's so much other stuff to think about in a session. So if the learning goals are actionable, we can actually practice them also. We can put them to use before seeing the client and experience with them in a safe place, which benefits both the client and ourselves. So and also in this learning goal competency, another thing that we work a lot on is how to present a clear and brief rationale as to why the learning goal might be relevant towards this clinical challenge. Okay. Next one is behavioral rehearsal and efficient use of time. And the training enables you to provide clear process guidance that encourages moving from theory and discussion to actually practicing behaviorally, and also to gently and tactfully limit theoretical discussion and encourage time for ongoing rehearsal, repetition, and successive refinement. It's not ironic that this is easier said than done. I think it's when you start filming your supervisions and study the amount of time we use outside of behavioral rehearsal, it's really astonishing. And then we also you also learn how to provide brief, relevant, and actionable feedback, and to balance the provision of positive feedback and corrective feedback, which is important. And then we focus on how to make the difficulty assessment and adjustment, and you will learn how to teach your supervisee to assess difficulty of practice and to make the difficulty adjustment accordingly. You'll receive training in making proper adjustments to practice to ensure it's neither too hard nor too easy. And we'll focus on how you can go about to do this non-shamingly. I think, yeah, and this non-shamingly part is because I think a lot of therapists are high-achieving people that are reluctant to tell you without shame that something is close to too difficult. So we have to facilitate that.
Let me just comment on that, Vidar. Yeah. There's a terrible feedback loop in our teaching system, I think. I've seen this multiple times where the trainee shames themselves or criticize themselves for not being able to do something that they were not actually taught.
Yeah.
So, for example, the trainee might have had a class on CBT or psychodynamic therapy or whatever, and then when they're in supervision and you ask them, oh, what skill are you trying out? Do you want to practice this skill? They will start attacking themselves for not immediately understanding what skill to use or not feeling competent in the skill. But we often have to remind trainees, they have had most of the time zero rehearsal and feedback on particular skills. You know? But the reality is, because of our education system, unfortunately, you will find many therapists and trainees who will think that they should already know how to do things. Right? And we really want to dispel that, because, of course, that's very unfair to trainees and therapists.
Yeah. And also sometimes when a therapist wants to learn something that is quite a distance from his current functioning, it might be just a matter of decomposing the difficulty or reducing the difficulty and decomposing the practice to build up to the skill level that the therapist wants. I think this is quite a different take on it than assuming that this is very much about talent, for example.
Yeah, right. It's us, the trainers, us, the supervisors, who should adapt the difficulty of the training to wherever the trainee is at.
Yeah.
Not shame them for them not being able to do something.
Yeah. I think I remember one supervisor once telling me that when I was self-disclosing shame over not performing well, and he said, "Yeah, Vidar, you don't know what you don't know. We have to accept that." I think that was very helpful. Nicely put. Okay, so let's move on to the 7th key competency in our training program. This is addressing shame and self-criticism. We have touched upon it already, but the training will teach you how to explicitly use validation and normalization and other verbal means to compassionately address the trainee's shame, self-criticism, and other complex reactions that may arise throughout the session. This was very new to me when I first got this kind of supervision. From my first supervision in this model was with Tony Rumenier, and he started the supervision by addressing this, and it was very. I have had great supervision before, but this way of tuning into the supervisee was something I hadn't experienced before. And I think it contributes to making a safe learning environment, which is crucial. And the 8th, these ones touch upon each other. The 8th key supervisor competency is promoting safe boundaries. This is about explicitly encouraging and prizing the trainees' privacy and autonomy, and to tactfully discourage the exploration of the trainees' personal material that is not directly related to the supervision work. So always, it's about always having contact with the clinical work and what we are actually aiming to achieve in supervision throughout the supervision. Alex, you have this. I want to say something.
Well, you know me too well. I'll just say a brief note, because part of the reason why we have this item is that we found two extremes also in different supervisory communities. One extreme, the supervisor believes that, you know, the therapist's inner world or inner experience is not something we should touch on, basically. And so we kind of pretend that it isn't there. And the problem with that is that you won't be able to do, well, it can easily become quite overwhelming for a trainee. You won't be able to adjust the training for the trainee. So that's one extreme, is not caring at all about what's happening for the trainee. The other extreme is transforming supervision into personal therapy, where the trainee is struggling with some sort of countertransference issue, or they're having a flooding of complex feelings, and you, the supervisor, start just exploring this material in a very personal way. And we do want to have a kind of integrative approach to it, where we still want to keep the boundaries of supervision, so not transform it into personal therapy, which unfortunately we have seen sometimes happen. So we want to honor the training's emerging experience, but work through it in a boundary safe way, without having to overly explore one's personal history and personal experience in a way that might be, you know, dangerous and triggering, etc. And so we have ways to train people to do that middle ground.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
And then the ninth is designing homework assignments. Basically, how to design relevant DP homework and how to administer this in a way that enhances the possibility of it actually being done. In my experience, this is a very vulnerable part of the system. People often procrastinate and find good reasons to skip the homework. So what we also find is that if we do the first steps that we saw, like the clinical challenge, skill deficit, and learning goal really clearly, and also manage to have a decent proportion of behavioral rehearsal within the supervision session, it's much easier to convert this to homework. It gets done, and the supervisee knows what to start doing when he starts practicing by himself. Okay, and then there's a facilitative interpersonal supervisor skill, which is the warmth, acceptance, and understanding that we pay a lot of attention to when training, and also rating the achieved competency after doing this certification program. So you learn to clearly convey warmth and acceptance, even in the face of trainees' complex feelings or intense arousal. And you'll also learn to maintain a general stance of calm, ease, and confidence in the trainee's work.
I should also importantly say that if someone totally flunks, has the lowest grade possible in, for example, this last item, warmth, acceptance, and understanding, they will not be certified as a DP supervisor. Because of course you can do everything else really well, but if you have terrible interpersonal skills, I mean, that still would not be great supervision, of course.
Yeah. No, I think also it's interesting to see how differently these skills are expressed across supervisors. I know supervisors that have a lot of expressed emotion in their face, and also some that are really stone faced, like really not that expressive, but where warmth and acceptance and understanding
is there.
still is very much there. So these things can be expressed in different ways. Okay, so that was the 10 key DP supervisor competencies. And I'd like to mention that on our website, the idpsociety.com website, there's this page called resources. There, under that, there's forms, and there you can find the competency scale, where these 10 skills are kind of, you can see how we rate them. It's a rating scale that we have worked a lot with. So that's also very actually good curriculum, I think, or at least helpful hints of supervisor behavior that promotes these competencies. Yeah. Okay. Any questions this far? Are you good? Yeah. So let's take a look at how you can learn these skills that we have been reviewing. The IDPS supervisor certification program has some main ingredients, and yeah, it's easier conveyed this way than in a text. You will find the text at the same site that I was describing, but the main ingredients is a short didactic webinar. I think these slides includes the link. It's on a later slide. It's a QR code with a link to our next didactic DP for supervisors training. That will be with me and Luca Rossi. That's also here. Luca from Italy. Luca, say hi. Yeah, great.
Hi.
Nice to see you, Luca. So, and after that, there's 20 consultations with an IDPS certifying supervisor. And after the 20 consultations, or sorry, not after, but along with the 20 consultations, you provide DP supervision. And then there's a final competency rating where you film your work, like 2 sessions with 2 different supervisees, and pick a video that clearly demonstrate the acquisition of these 10 skills. And these videos will be rated by 2 external raters within the IDPS. And then there's a form to fill, and finally you get your diploma. So that's the main ingredients in 1 page. If you want it in many pages, it's on the website, where there we elaborate on what these. Yeah, we describe these steps more thoroughly. Okay, so I'm just going to take you briefly through the workflow that you will be having while doing this certification. So, and I'm in this, when we talk about this workflow, we have to mention like the supervisor, the supervisor's supervisor, and the supervisee of the supervisor, and it gets confusing. So just to start off with a kind of to map the roles included, this is you, the DP supervisor to be. And then you have a certifying supervisor who gives you supervision on supervision. So, and then you provide supervision to a supervisee who has patience. So these are the main roles. So with this in mind, let's take a look at the work rhythm. So you meet your certifying supervisor and work with DP supervision. And what we also recommend you to do solitary practice, like homework or practice with a colleague, the supervisor skills that you focus on. I have done that a lot, and I've found that very helpful. We also find that we can't demand this of everybody because of time, but that's why we call it recommended. And then you provide supervision to supervisee, and after providing supervision, you fill a short form it's not a lot of paperwork. It's more like consolidating your experience and getting conscious about what you have been trying to do and how it went. This is submitted to your certifying supervisor, and we often pick up on that in the next supervision. So this is kind of the cycle. For 20 sessions, or 20 repetitions, you get supervision, you give supervision, you consolidate, and go to start over and over. And usually 20 sessions is needed for acquiring these skills. So if you also want to put in these slides, if you want to get started, there's the easiest way is to register for the next didactic DP for supervisors, and to reach out to one of us. We have the emails here also. If you're curious about starting this training yourself.